You had something that you wanted to respond to. Maybe you can do that briefly before we also now bring in the aspect of psychology. And really, this is for all Kenyans, because I did speak to somebody yesterday and they were in distress, wondering what am I supposed to do. But before that, yeah, just your response.
Just very quickly, and thank you, Michael. I think I want to point out a number of things. Every attack or every incident comes with its unique experiences. And Westgate attack and even Dusit attack is no exception. I think looking at what has been happening from yesterday, I think we can draw vital lessons. But the gaps that I want to point out, one is to the security officers. And of course, with a lot of respect, how do you isolate the people who are being rescued or evacuated from a building that has been attacked? And exactly what do you do with them? How do you ensure that you are getting important information out of them? And how do you ensure that all those who are being evacuated, none of them is some of the suspects that we are talking about? I think that's key. Number two, in terms of psychosocial support, I think I'm yet to know exactly what is being done as far as those people or the victims are concerned. Number three, maybe it is a challenge to media houses. Even as we celebrate our excellent journalism that has been displayed from yesterday, I think I want to ask, do we actually have a template of dealing with such kind of incidents? Because it should not be a reactionary affair that Michael, you ran there, Koki ran to the other place. And I think that is a pregnant question that we must start now tackling at the moment within the newsrooms. Let us have SOPs that can guide us in terms of operations, that can guide us in terms of coverage. And I think I want to throw that challenge again to Koki, being a lecturer. Have we started considering breaking news as not as a lesson, but as a standalone unit in schools? Just like what we need to do as far as investigative journalism is concerned.
Absolutely.
Because those are critical areas. When you look at newsrooms, careers have been broken as far as breaking news is concerned. And nowadays, with the advent of social media or new media, everything has become breaking until we have no breaking news at all.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris.
I can attest with us in USIU, I don't know about anybody else. We are at the cutting edge. We have a master's that deals with digital media. We are also reviewing our curriculum just to make sure that digital media becomes one of the key things that come into place. And of course, the face of journalism then changes, isn't it? You cannot address one aspect of communication or journalism and leave, or communication and leave the other out. The fact that the issue of it just being a unit by its own, it will have to be detected by the content. What will be the content? How much of it will suffice? How will that? But in all fairness, today in journalism schools, it's prudent that the curriculum be changed to look at security matters. I think key to many of these issues with journalists, and I wanted to comment yesterday, initially journalists did not have
protective wear.
Protective wear. But towards, as we went along, we saw them putting them on.
And even just to highlight that, when it comes to reporting, should there be a unit specifically on terrorism and terrorist attacks? Because that's different from robbery. It may be different from maybe just a random explosion that took place. A terrorist attack has hallmarks of maybe like a repeated attack. So maybe should there be a special unit specifically for terrorism attacks?
I just think security should be the overarching area of content, and then you will decide as you go along creating the content, breaking it down. You will give emphasis to security in terrorism incidences, security around elections, for example, in Kenya. You remember what happened last time with journalists not being able to take care of themselves first. Remember things like it's your life. There's no story. I heard Joe Cathy say there's no story worth dying for. Some things that are important to the journalists to be self-aware. Because if you look at the Committee of Protection of Journalists updates, I mean, people are really, journalism as a practice is under threat, not just from governments, but just from the nature of the work, from people who don't trust the media for what it stands for. So we have to look at that dimension and really take it seriously.
All right. And let me bring in Sheila Njoroge, who's a clinical psychologist now. And this, of course, is a question that many Kenyans may need an answer, although we may not even know that we need an answer. And the question is, I got a call yesterday, practically, from somebody who was distressed. By virtue of the fact that we're in the media, you'll be inundated with calls with people asking what's going on. And they had a relative who was in the building, but genuinely did not know what to do. And the question was, what am I supposed to do?
In that case, actually, we need to reassure them that their loved ones are maybe in safe hands, that there are people who are professional in taking care of the security at that time. And we need to calm them, because at that time they are so high in adrenaline and all. They need to know how their loved ones are actually faring inside there. So they need reassurance and calming at most at that time. That is very crucial.
Okay, and of course, they may be hysterical, they may want to go there, they may want to, even take things into their own hands, and handling that can be difficult, but maybe just to advise that may not be a solution at that point in time.
Yeah, we actually need to ask if there are any social support around, the friends, the family, who will need to take care of them. And if it's taking them at the scene, they need to also go to the scene so that they actually get, they actually get like, they actually get the meaning of now their reassurance that their people are inside there and are going to be rescued. Yeah, so the need of social support is actually very...
It's there.
Yeah.
All right, and Kogi, coming to you also now from a training perspective, I've also seen on social media there are some people who are somewhat complaining, and that's what I was saying earlier on, with media it's doomed if we do, doomed if we don't. There are those who are coming out of the building, and of course we want to find out what was going on. But again, are they in a stable mental situation where they can actually talk? Because some of them are breaking down right in front of the cameras.
Of course, we have to be a bit sensitive to them. Like she says, these are people who are undergoing trauma, and in that moment in time, it would be prudent to really see if this person is in a mind of frame, or just to do an assessment. Is this person in a mind of frame to say something not very traumatizing, but just to maybe say that, just give
some assurance.
Assurance or some position, but again, to probe them into telling the story and what has happened, I think is an issue that should be addressed. And one thing I want to say, media, we bash ourselves really hard.
Correct.
And I think media is like playing football. As an observer, you know who should kick the ball where. But as media, given the complexities and the differences that happen for every incident, I think what we need to learn, and media should not take it personally, is that you pick lessons and move ahead. Come up with your strategy to deal with a terrorist situation. I know Media Council has really supported journalists in terms of publications, how to deal with the, terrorism, how to protect yourself as a journalist, how to make the journalists more aware of the kind of challenges they are facing in the work environment. So I think as journalists, we must be able to put teams together that are proactive and adaptive, so that as the story unfolds, we are on the ground, yes, but we are also taking care that the facets that are important are kept intact.
All right. Sheila, the importance of, and maybe this, I normally say that if you're in a hotel, it doesn't help for you to look at the fire escape route when it's burning. You need to look at it before, so that if that happens, you have an idea. Now, when it comes to an attack like this, and maybe you're holed up in that place, one needs as much of their brain as they can have to stay calm, to make what I'd call reasonable decisions. But how does that one do that, given that things are happening so fast, and it's literally a matter of life and death?
Okay. There are actually early interventions that people are always like informed in such cases, of which I don't think in Kenya it's actually so, people are not so aware of it. We need to make people aware that in such situations, there are actually some steps that you need to take, like the breathing techniques, because in such a case, you may be anxious, anxiety may pop in, and maybe a degree of distress. So there is a breathing technique where you need to breathe in, breathe out in case maybe three times, then take the next step. If it's running if it's flighting, that's the next step you should
The
take.
natural response for some might even be to scream, yet that might be putting you in more danger. How does one control that? And I'm talking about this now so that, God forbid, but should it happen, one is already aware, because sometimes you are not aware and you just react. Yeah. So how does one control that? Because you're in a very, an environment that the situations change very fast.
So in that case, what is the next step to take to safety? Because the first thing that should come to you is the next steps to safety. You shouldn't just run with the crowd anywhere or any direction. Just look at the next steps to safety. If it's like locking yourself in a place, then maybe if you have a phone around and texting people that you're in that place, that would be then the most necessary step at that point. Because some may, in the flight response, like when we act, when the adrenaline is so high at that point, and there's this flight response, there are some who may have even, maybe there are people who have asthma attacks, they have actually asthma, there are people who have high blood pressure. So at this point, they really need to come and take the next safety step they actually think of.
All right, and I want us now to cross over to Hussein Mohammed, who is still at 14 Riverside Drive. And just a quick reminder, we're expecting the president anytime to give a press conference. It'll be the first press briefing that he has given since the attack took place yesterday at around 3 p.m. And he has not yet said anything so far verbally or even on his social media handles, but we're expecting him to give a press briefing anytime now. But first, let's cross over to Hussein Mohammed. Hussein, who is at 14 Riverside Drive. Hussein, any updates that you have since we last spoke?
Well, Mike, outside here it's calm, but sources close to the police are telling me that 3 of the people who are fighting with the police have been killed inside the hotel, which is more than 500 meters from where we are standing. 3 of them have been killed. These are unconfirmed reports, and 2 of them are still fighting with the police. The operation is still underway. As I said earlier, Mike, the police are timing this area still operational, and that's why the public has been cordoned off, and journalists have been kept at bay here around 500 meters from where the whole situation is happening. As you can see, is police officers still coming in, police officers still going out. These are some of the reinforcements that have been brought in here at 14 Riverside Drive in Westlands, Nairobi. Mike, the situation is still calm outside here, but inside more than 30 minutes ago, we could hear explosions and sporadic gunfire. But from the people we are speaking to, that is sources close to the police, are telling us that 3 of the people who were fighting with the police have been killed, and 2 of them are still holed up there. And police, the well-organized police evacuation and rescue is still ongoing inside the hotel. Mike.
Clarity now as to whether the building has been cleared of any hostages. Do we know if the building is clear of any hostages? We do know that the Red Cross has removed their station, and also friends and relatives are also not there. But do we know if the place has been cleared of any hostages?
Well, Mike, we cannot confirm if the place has been cleared of any hostages, but what we can report to is what I have gathered with sources close to the police, who have been telling me that the operation is still underway. There's a lot of pressure inside there, but the Kenya security officers are doing a good job here, and they've managed to kill 3 of the people who are fighting inside the hotel, and 2 of them are still holed up. These are unconfirmed reports. These are sources close to us who are telling us what is happening there. We are awaiting, as you say, the President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is supposed to speak in a few minutes in State House. We are waiting for information from the Interior Ministry on exactly what is happening inside. But what we can report now is what we hear and what we can see and what they are telling us. Mike.
Thank you very much, Hussein Mohammed, who is reporting from 14 Riverside Drive, where the attack took place yesterday. And a quick reminder, the president should be giving a presser any time now. And as soon as he is ready, or we have that ready, we certainly will be giving you details. So far, we have not heard from him, but we must say that we've heard from the various heads of various security organs. And we have the Inspector General, Joseph Boynet, gave a statement. We have Dr. Fred Matiang'i, who's the CS for Internal Security, also gave a statement. So we have been getting that information, however, still scanty. But just an update that Hussein has given us, and it is suspected that these are unconfirmed reports, that there may have been 5 attackers who are still in the building, which probably would account for and explain the sporadic gunfire that was heard from 6 a.m. There's been sporadic on and off from 6 a.m. all the way till about 7 and 8. There's been gunfire that has been heard, but according to what Hussein tells us, that unconfirmed reports say that 3 of those may have been neutralized, still 2 remaining to be done. But of course, those are unconfirmed reports, and as soon as we have it confirmed, we will let you know and keep you posted on that. Meanwhile, of course, as a country, still coming together and ensuring that we remain vigilant, we remain strong. Remember, you too are a security agent, and any information that would lead to the arrest or to revealing of what this was all about is welcomed by the police agencies, and they've given various contacts on their social media platforms which you can access should you have any information that you think would be helpful to have those arrested that were responsible for this, or any information that would help towards this getting this over and done with. That would be very, very, very helpful. Let me come to you, Koki, and just your analysis of how we basically have broken this news, and even how we've been on it, because we should have learned lessons from the previous attacks that we have had, and specifically Westgate, because there are quite a number of things that are similar. The way the attackers came and literally ran in, firing, and explosions all over the place. Your analysis, whether we really have learned some lessons from the media perspective.
I think so. I think all of us here have acknowledged the work that the media and even the security agencies have done, and even the support, the humanitarian support. Each one of them has communicated what they think is necessary at a given time. It has been paced, not just paced, it has been choreographed. You could see that people would take time to find out the facts without, really being guided by social media, as it were. In fact, you find you've just seen your reporter saying, no, I can't tell you anything else. Right. Not giving his opinion, not
sticking to the facts.
Sticking to the facts, using words like unconfirmed, it has been alleged, So basically, I think the media has really taken this incident per se in the stride that it should. And I said that the media is really bashing themselves. But like I said, it's a football match. You can be an observer outside, but the real happenings is on the ground. Those on the ground have taken time, and it's not just KTN, it's all the media houses that I reflected on last night, and even early in the morning, to be able to see that they are really taking precaution. Maybe a bit of challenge in terms of the print media headlines and all that, but you've seen that the pictures that have been put in the media have a sense of hope, and of course a sense of despair, but you can be able to see that effort is being taken to curb the situation, and the psyche around the incident has been turned around to be one that's hopeful.
All right, Sheila, what lessons should we glean from this? Because moving forward, this is a traumatic experience for the whole country. And we are likely to face traumatic situations, whether it presents itself this way or in a different manner. But what should we learn from this so that we're able to support each other?
Actually, we should learn more of coping skills, because right now we need so much coping skills guiding with the situation that this is not the first terror attack in Kenya. There are victims like from the Westgate attack, like who, and even dating back in the bombing, the 1998 bombing. So actually right now we need so much of coping skills. Then we need guidance on the warning signs of any terror attack that is going to happen, or in any terror situations. What are the first steps you're supposed to take? What are the things that you're supposed to take, like maybe rescuing people? What are the steps? Like yesterday, I saw in the news there was this guy who was rescuing the people. Then when he went for the next, he was like the terrorist had seen him already. So he came out more traumatized than even the people that he had rescued. So like what are the things that we should actually take guard in such situation?
And one thing that we often forget is the aftermath.
Yeah.
And to this day, there are people who cannot walk into Westgate, even despite the number of years. But that also is something that we should address. With this happening, there are those who had the blast. That sound remains in your mind for a long, long time. There are those who heard screams. There are those who had gunfire. Those are images and sounds that remain in your head. How do we overcome those? Because with time, one needs to somehow, get back to normal and work if you need to work, take care of your family if you need to take care of your family.
Well, before I come to that, there are 3 types of special groups in any terrorist attack, in any terror attack. The first is the victims and the people who are connected to the victims. Then the second one is the witnesses. The witnesses now who heard the loud bang, the screams, and maybe the passers-by. Then the third are the people now, the community who actually who experienced terror attack even before. There are people maybe from, they experienced this terror attack maybe from the Westgate and all, and maybe from even the Garissa University, and maybe they happen to pass by there, they happen to now see the terror attack, what happened from there. So these 3 people we really need to take into consideration. So in such case, what was the question?
The question was how you get rid of those images and some of those sounds, because over time we tend to move on, but there are people who are left with scars, which are not visible.
So there's therapy that is done to them, and before the therapy, there's actually, like now the victims, we need to do the debriefing and any psychological first aid at first, so that we can actually lessen the stress reactions from what they have experienced. Now coming to the second degree, the witnesses, we need now to reassure them of the safety and calming and all, and so that they can actually be safe, be assured that the environment is actually safe no matter what is going on. And from the third degree, now the community level who had now maybe experienced this thing earlier, maybe they are going through something called PTSD. This is post-traumatic stress disorder. So in post-traumatic stress disorders, there's actually 3 things that goes on, 3 symptoms. This is the numbing. They actually numb the symptoms. And actually another thing is when they now re-experience, when they actually go,
that moment.
And actually the third thing is now they become hyperactive, they lack sleep, they become anxious and all. So for them to actually be confident that the place is safe, there is actually a therapy in psychology that they are actually taken through. It's called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that includes in vivo. This in vivo, it actually exposes them maybe to the scene. It takes them back to the scene, so that every time they make that move, they make that trip to the scene, they get reassured that it's actually safe.
All right, and Koki, while we're still talking about psychosocial support for journalists, because here you are exposed to all this, and sometimes you're on an adrenaline high because you're reporting, you're observing, you're getting information, but you too get affected. At some point when you go home, you sit down and suddenly all these things begin to play back. The importance of psychosocial support for people who are actually on the front line.
Not just people in the front line. I'd like to say that mental health in Kenya needs to move a notch higher. It's not just in traumatic incidences like this, like terror, for example. There are so many things that traumatize people, and I'm sure every other person who has undergone a crisis will have that trauma experience. It's just that it has not been institutionalized that you need to be treated for mental health. The stigma around mental health is one of the things that we need to really focus on and make it, normalize it as a way of getting out of situations that otherwise would put us in trauma. And not to mention that then journalism in itself, the nature of work is traumatic. I remember one of my students when she first went for internship, and it was somewhere in the coast, there was a lot of chaos, Garsen. She came back and told us, you know, she was with the cameraman left the camera, so she took and she started jumping overboard. So that is like 6, 7, 8 years ago. I really wonder if today she has really dealt with it from a...
Recovered.
Yeah, recovered. And imagine the many other incidences that you might face. So I think from the journalist perspective, mental health is something that needs to be integrated into the curriculum to address what the journalists need to do. Maybe the media houses need to consider it as one of the packages that become important for the journalists time and time again. It's not a one-off thing. You need to have spaces that you can go and talk about these things and feel that you are dealing with what is going on with you mentally.
Okay. Sheila, let me bring in a fourth, maybe, community that you've not mentioned here, is the observers, those who maybe were not at the scene, were not involved, but you have a relative or a friend who was there and you'd like to offer support. What sort of support would you advise for people to offer? Because sometimes we are left wondering, how do I help? I want to help, but I don't know how to.
Okay, there are actually 5 things that social support, or maybe the family and the friends or the social network that's supposed to provide to their relatives who are involved. The first of them is just being there for that person.
Presence.
Yeah, the presence. Even if they don't talk, you just be there. You being there, it actually gives them confidence that everything is going on well. Another thing is you shouldn't like prompt them to talk but if they're talking, if they're, just listen. Yeah, listening is very crucial to them, because in such a case they'll want to talk and tell you everything that actually went on and actually everything that they're involved in, their loved ones they're involved in. So just listen, offer that ear. Another thing is actually reassuring them that that was an episode that actually had to happen, but it's not supposed like it has to happen like in every day of their life. With this, it takes away fear and anxiety from them. Another thing is actually maybe advising them of any professional help they're supposed to take. Yeah.
All right, Koki, as we wind up, possibly the expectation that you have, this is a developing story, but we can use it as a template for even other developing stories, and we don't know for how long. It's one of those where you're literally on the beat until whatever time. But what is it that you'd expect now in terms of information? What should we be looking at as the media? Because we've already given the first part of it, which is what happened, the statistics that we have so far, the facts that we have, but there is now the story behind the story.
Yes, I think after our president gives an official address, which I said is probably because he's waiting for something more final to be able to tell us, I think the media follows through what has been said and tries to follow through the stories or any other incidences that are suspected to be of the same nature. Maybe follow the story of who is behind the attack in real sense. You know, remember at Garissa what happened when we found out who the perpetrators were. We discovered it's not just the helpless, you know, person who is jobless. They were elite, so we need to like interrogate, not exactly expose the persons, but interrogate who are these people who are claiming to be behind this movement. I think the other narrative is to say, really, it's no longer about religion, it's no longer about your ethnic group, it's no longer about where you come from, it's about the safety of all Kenyans, and put in more logic in what we are doing. Of course, things like she said, dealing with trauma become important. How to deal with security. This time I had incidences where people said, I went under the table, I went into the ceiling, I went, you know, so what are some of those things that we could do when we find ourselves in that situation? How can we calm ourselves? And again, the importance of these spaces where people gather, making sure security is shared, not just internally as organizations, but with their guests, so that they are aware of things, of where they can hide, and even what can happen in the eventual. It's like getting into an aeroplane. We take it for granted, but you're told put on your oxygen and whatever.
Yes, they give you a brief.
Yeah,
before
brief,
you actually
yes.
take
So
off.
that brief becomes part and parcel of one of the things that they package for their customers.
All right, and Sheila, as we wind up, what that brief that she's talking about, if you get into an aircraft, they normally tell you, in case of an accident, this is what you do. In case of an incident like this, what would you advise Kenyans?
Okay, they should actually stay calm wherever they are in case of an accident, in case of a terror attack, or in case they are found near the terror attack. Another thing is when you find that there is actually a safety place that you should actually take off in, you should actually take off and actually look for a safe place. Like the people who are found in the roads at that time, the next thing that they should do is actually look for a safety place possible around. Another thing is they shouldn't let themselves have maybe an anxiety attack because of everything that is going around. They should everything that they are taking on is acting calmly, because this is acting calm, because this is a very crucial moment where they can get adverse stress reactions from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, and maybe even for people with other conditions, for instance, high blood pressure, this could be a dangerous situation. Maybe somebody with a heart condition, the importance of just staying calm, because this could aggravate some of those conditions. Okay, Koki, your closing remarks as we wind up.
I think it is sad again in Kenya that we find ourselves in this situation, that we have been sporadically, not really sporadical, but over a decade or so. I think some questions are pertinent to understand what exactly is going on, what are the issues arising from terror attacks, the issues of countering violence extremism, the issues of involving, participation from the public in their safety, participation, with government agencies in terms of, making sure that we secure our environment. I'm also thinking that for journalism per se, like you said, security must be an issue that must be addressed for journalists, trauma, how to handle trauma, and also the new way of reporting incidences like this that can cause high stress levels, I think, become important.
Thank you very much, Coach Koki Ching, who is a lecturer at USIU. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And also Sheila Njoroge for joining us. And this is where we're going to wind up this part of the show, Morning Express. But, of course, we continue with wall-to-wall coverage of the incident that started off yesterday at around 3 p.m. and that is at 14 Riverside Drive. And for now, I want to hand over the reins